Imagine this: you close your eyes in your soft, warm bed, the hum of modern life fading away. And when you open them, you're no longer in your room, no longer in the world you know. Instead, you're lying on a prickly straw mattress, the air cold and damp, the faint smell of wood smoke and unwashed wool clinging to your nose. You're Sir Roland de Caerwyn. A night in Conwy Castle. It's 1285, and the world is vast, harsh, and strangely alive. Welcome to History Orbit, where we weave the past into stories that lull you into a gentle, restful sleep if you love. Drifting off to the rhythm of history, consider subscribing to our channel. It's a small click that helps us bring more tales like this to you now. Let's step into Sir Roland's world, feel the weight of the moment. The stone walls of Conwy Castle looming around you, their whitewashed surfaces flickering in the dim glow of a dying fire. You stir, your body stiff from the thin pallet beneath you, the straw rustles, poking through the coarse linen sheet, each movement stirring a faint cloud of dust that tickles your throat. Around you, the great hall is a chorus of snores, grunts, and the occasional cough. Knights and squires sprawl across pallets or benches, their shapes barely visible in the pre-dawn gloom. The air is heavy, not just with the chill of an early Welsh morning, but with the mingled sense of sweat, leather, and the faint sourness of last night's ale. You shift, trying to ease the ache in your back, but the straw offers little comfort. It's nothing like the springy mattress you know from another time, another life. Your legs brush against the rough wool of your blanket, thin and patched, barely enough to keep the cold at bay. You notice a faint itch. Fleas, they're everywhere in this world, burrowing into the seams of your clothes, hiding in the straw. A constant companion you've learned to ignore, or try to, outside. The wind howls off the Irish Sea, rattling the wooden shutters. You hear it, a low moan that seems to carry the weight of the castle's history. Conwy, built by King Edward I to hold the Welsh in check. Its 8 massive towers standing like silent sentinels against rebellion. You're here because of that rebellion. Daff-eyed Ap Gruffud's men are stirring again, or so the rumors say. And you, Sir Roland, are bound to serve, to fight, to uphold the king's will. But for now, it's just you, the straw, and the cold. Your breath catches as a distant bell tolls, the chapel calling for matins, the first of the day's prayers. It's a sound that pulls you from the haze of sleep, a reminder that your day, like every day, begins. Not with choice, but with duty. You sit up slowly, the pallet creaking beneath you. The hall is vast, its high ceiling lost in shadows. The stone walls cold to the touch. You can feel their chill even from here. The great hall is no place for luxury. It's a place of function, of survival, where men sleep in heaps, their boots still on, their swords close at hand. You glance at the man next to you. Sir Hugh de Louis, older, grizzled, his beard streaked with grey. He mutters in his sleep something about a lost horse. You almost smile, but the cold bites at your fingers, grounding you. You swing your legs over the side of the pallet, your bare feet meeting the rushes on the floor. They're damp, always damp, scattered with herbs to mask the smell of men and dogs, but it never quite works. You stand, your joints protesting, and pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders. It's coarse, woven from rough wool, nothing like the soft fabrics you once knew. You take a step, the rushes crunching softly, and move toward the hearth where embers glow faintly, offering a whisper of warmth. You hold your hands out, feeling the faint heat. It's not enough, it's never enough, but it's something. You notice your squire, Thomas, a lanky boy of 15, curled up near the wall, his breath visible in the cold air. He's supposed to be awake before you, readying your gear, but he's young, still learning. You let him sleep a moment longer. The hall is quiet now, save for the wind and the distant bell. You feel the weight of the day ahead, not just the physical weight of armor or sword, but the weight of expectation, of loyalty, of survival. You're a knight, but you're also a man, cold, tired, and very much awake in a world that demands everything from you. As you stand by the hearth, the bell tolls again, sharper now, pulling you toward the chapel, toward the first task of the day. But as you move, you catch a glimpse of the hall's far end, where a narrow window lets in a sliver of grey light. Dawn is coming, and with it, the world outside these walls, a world of stone and steel and endless duty. You take a deep breath, the air sharp in your lungs, and step forward, ready or not, into the rhythm of this medieval life. The chapel bell rings on, its sound weaving through the castle like a thread, pulling you from the warmth of the hearth, such as it is, toward the cold stone corridors beyond. You pause, glancing back at the sleeping forms, the hall a patchwork of men bound by oath and hardship. You wonder just for a moment what it would be like to stay here, to sink back into the straw, and let the day pass. But the bell calls and duty calls louder. You adjust your blanket, its rough edge brushing your neck, and head toward the door. The day has begun, and there's no turning back. Not for Sir Roland, not for you, as you step into the corridor. The air grows colder still, and you can't help but wonder what waits beyond the chapel. What tasks, what struggles, what small moments of life will fill this day in Conwy Castle. The corridor outside the great hall is narrow, its stone walls slick with moisture, the air carrying a faint tang of salt from the sea beyond Conwy's walls. You, Sir Roland de Caerwyn, move slowly, your blanket draped over your shoulders, the cold seeping through your thin linen shirt, your feet bare against the icy floor. Feel every uneven stone, each step a reminder of the castle's unyielding nature. You pass a flickering torch, its light casting long shadows that dance across the whitewashed walls. You're heading to the garderobe, a necessity that feels both urgent and unappealing. The bell for matins still echoes in your mind. But first, you must tend to the body's demands. The garderobe is a small chamber built into the castle's outer wall, a wooden seat perched over a chute that drops to the rocks below. Where the sea will carry away what little privacy this act allows, you push open the heavy door, its hinges groaning, and step inside. The smell hits you first, sharp and sour, a mix of human waste and a damp stone that never quite dries. You sit, the wood cold and splintered, and try to focus on the sound of the waves far below, their rhythmic crash a distant comfort. It's a far cry from the clean, tiled bathrooms you once knew with their warm water and soft towels. Here, there's only the chute, the cold, and the faint hope that the wind will keep the worst of the smell at bay. You finish quickly, eager to move on and step back into the corridor where Thomas, your squire, is waiting, bleary-eyed but upright. He's holding a chipped clay basin, water sloshing gently inside. You nod to him, and he follows you to a small alcove near the hall, where you can wash. The water is cold, of course, drawn from a well deep within the castle. You splash it on your face, the shock of it waking you fully. Droplets cling to your beard, trickling down your neck. Thomas hands you a scrap of linen to dry off. It's rough, barely absorbent, but it's all you have. You wipe your face, feeling the grit of the past few days still clinging to your skin. Bathing is a rare luxury here, something reserved for feast days or when the castle's lord insists. Perhaps once a month, if you're lucky, you catch a whiff of yourself, the faint musk of sweat and wool. It's not unpleasant, not really, it's just the smell of life in this time. You glance at Thomas, who's already gathering your clothes. He's laid out your brace, a clean linen shirt and a wool tunic all folded on a low bench. You pull on the brace first, their loose fabric tying at the waist, then the shirt, its sleeves slightly frayed but soft from years of wear. The tunic comes next, a deep green wool that hangs to your knees. It's heavy, already warm from your body heat, but it's been worn for days, and it carries the faint scent of smoke and horse. You adjust the belt, its leather creaking, and slip on your hose, tying them to the brace with practiced ease. Thomas watches, learning, his hands fidgeting as he waits for your next command. You notice his tunic is patched, a reminder of his lower station, but his eyes are sharp, eager to prove himself. You give him a small nod, and he scurries off to fetch your boots. The corridor is quiet now, the bell has stopped, but you know you're running out of time. Matins waits for no one, not even a knight. You take a moment to stretch, feeling the stiffness in your shoulders, the ache of a body that's spent years in armor, years on horseback. He is serving a king whose will is as unyielding as these walls. You glance out a narrow window, the grey light of dawn just beginning to touch the battlements. Conwy's towers stand stark against the sky, their stone a testament to Edward's ambition. You think of the Welsh beyond those walls, of Darthide's men, of the campaign that looms like a storm on the horizon, but those thoughts are distant for now. You're here, in this moment, in this castle, with its cold stones and its endless routines. You turn back to the corridor, your boots now in hand. Thomas trailing behind, you slip them on, the leather stiff but familiar, and head toward the chapel. The air grows colder as you move deeper into the castle, the walls narrowing, the torchlight fading. You can hear the faint murmur of voices now, other knights, other squires, all drawn by the same bell, the same duty. You feel the weight of your tunic, the scratch of wool against your skin, and you wonder, just for a moment, what it would be like to linger here, to avoid the chapel's cold stone and the long prayers ahead. But the thought passes. Duty is not a choice, it's a rhythm, a pulse that drives this life. And as you round the corner, the chapel door comes into view. It's heavy oak carved with simple crosses. You push it open, the creak echoing in the silence, and step inside, ready to kneel, to pray, to begin the day as Sir Roland de Caerwyn, Knight of Conwy Castle. The chapel's air is different, colder still but somehow softer. Carrying the faint scent of wax and incense, it's a place apart from the castle's harshness, a place where the soul is meant to find peace. Even if the body aches, you take a step forward, your boots echoing on the stone floor, and feel the day shift from the mundane to the sacred, from the body to the spirit. But the ache in your knees is already whispering, reminding you of the hours to come, of the prayers that will fill this morning and every morning. And you wonder what lies beyond the chapel, what tasks await in the light of day. The chapel door creaks as you push it open, the sound swallowed by the vastness of Conwy Castle's sacred space. You step inside. Sir Roland de Caerwyn, your boots echoing softly on the stone floor. The air is different here, colder than the corridor, but softer, laced with the faint sweetness of beeswax and the smoky curl of incense. It's a world apart from the damp, crowded great hall where you woke, or the sour-smelling garderobe where you began your morning. This is a place of quiet, of ritual, where the weight of the world feels both heavier and lighter. You pause, letting your eyes adjust to the dimness. The chapel is small, its whitewashed walls glowing faintly in the light of a dozen candles, their flames flickering like tiny stars against the stone. You feel the cold seep through your wool tunic, the rough fabric brushing your skin as you move. You're here for matins, the first of the day's prayers, soon to be followed by prime. The rhythm of the canonical hours is the heartbeat of this life, a pulse that governs every night, every squire, every soul within these walls. You take a deep breath, the air sharp with wax and the faint mustiness of old stone, and step forward, your boots scuffing softly. You notice the others already here, shadowy figures kneeling on the floor, their heads bowed, their breath visible in the chill. Father Cedric, the chaplain, stands at the altar, his voice a low drone, chanting Latin phrases that roll over you like waves. You don't understand every word, few do, but the sound is familiar. Comforting in its repetition, you find a spot near the back, where the stone is worn smooth by years of kneeling. You lower yourself, your knees protesting as they meet the cold, unyielding floor. The ache is immediate, a dull throb that you know will grow with each passing minute. You cross yourself, your fingers brushing the wool of your tunic, and bow your head. The chapel is quiet, save for Father Cedric's voice and the occasional cough or shuffle from the others. You glance around, seeing Sir Hugh de Louis a few paces away, his grizzled face set in a mask of devotion, though you suspect he's half asleep. His squire, young Owain, kneels beside him, his eyes wide, trying to mimic his master's posture. Your own squire, Thomas, slips in behind you, his footsteps hesitant. He's late, but you say nothing, letting him settle beside you. The candles cast long shadows, their light dancing across the simple wooden cross above the altar. You try to focus on the prayers, on the words, Domini, labiami apparis, Lord, open my lips. But your mind wanders to the cold, to the ache in your knees, to the campaign that looms beyond these walls. Dafydd ap Grufford's name floats through your thoughts, a whisper of rebellion that threatens the king's peace. You push it aside, focusing on the rhythm of the chant, the rise and fall of Father Cedric's voice. It's hypnotic, pulling you deeper into the moment. You cross yourself again, the motion automatic. your fingers stiff from the cold. The stone beneath you seems to draw the warmth from your body. Leaving you shivering, you think of the modern world you once knew, where prayer was a choice, not a command, where floors were carpeted, not stone, where warmth was a flick of a switch, not a distant dream. Here in 1285, faith is not just belief, it's duty. Woven into every hour of the day, you'll return here for prime, then lords, then tersex, nun, vespers, compline 8 times every day. The thought is both comforting and exhausting, a cycle that never ends. You shift slightly, easing the pressure on your knees. The stone is merciless, but you've learned to endure it, just as you've learned to endure the weight of your armor, the uncertainty of war, the fleas that still itch beneath your clothes. Father Cedric's voice rises, Gloria Patri, et Filio, et Spiritui Sancto, and you murmur along, your voice lost in the chorus of the others. The words are a tether, grounding you to this place. This time, you glance at the chapel's walls, noticing the faint outlines of painted saints, their faces worn by time, their eyes seeming to watch you. Conwy's chapel is modest, not like the grand cathedrals of London or Canterbury, but it's the heart of the castle, a place where even knights must kneel. You feel a pang of something, not quite faith, not quite doubt, but a sense of being part of something larger, something eternal. The candles flicker, their wax dripping slowly onto the stone, each drop a tiny silent marker of time. You think of the hours ahead, the training in the courtyard, the meal in the great hall, the preparations for the march to come. But for now you're here, kneeling, praying, bound by the rhythm of this life. Father Cedric moves to the next psalm, his voice steady, unending. You close your eyes, letting the sound wash over you. It's not just prayer, it's a kind of surrender, a letting go of the self. You feel the cold stone, the ache in your knees, the faint warmth of the candlelight on your face, and you wonder, briefly, what it would be like to stand, to walk away, to leave this chapel and its endless rituals. But the thought is fleeting. Duty is not a choice, it's who you are. Sir Roland, Knight of Conwy Castle, you open your eyes, the chapel unchanged, the prayers unbroken. Father Cedric's voice carries on, and you settle back into the rhythm, the words blending into one another, a soft, monotonous tide. You notice Thomas shifting beside you, his young face strained with the effort of staying still. You almost smile, remembering your own days as a squire. The chapel feels smaller now, the air thicker, the candles burning lower. Matins is nearly over, but prime will follow soon. Another round of kneeling, another round of chants. You feel the weight of the day pressing down, not just the prayers, but the tasks that wait beyond. The sword drills, the armor, the whispers of war. You cross yourself again, the motion slower now, your fingers brushing the ruffle of your tunic. The chapel is quiet, save for the prayers, the candles, the soft breathing of the men around you. You think of the great hall, of the straw pallet where you woke, of the garderobe's cold seat, and you realize this is your life, a cycle of small moments, each one building toward the next. Father Cedric's voice softens, signaling the end of matins. You rise, your knees stiff, your legs unsteady. The others stand as well, their movements slow, deliberate. You glance at Sir Hugh, who catches your eye and nods, a silent acknowledgement of shared duty. You turn toward the door, the cold air of the corridor waiting. But Father Cedric's voice calls you back. Prime will begin soon. You pause, feeling the pull of the chapel, the pull of the day. You take a step toward the altar, where the candles still burn, their light a faint promise of warmth. You kneel again, ready for the next round of prayers, the next piece of this endless rhythm. But as you settle into place, your mind drifts not to the prayers, not to the stone, but to the courtyard beyond, where the sun is rising, where your sword waits, where the life of a knight truly begins. You feel the chapel's stillness, the weight of faith and duty. And you know that when prime ends, you'll step out into the light, into the mud and steel of Conwy Castle, ready to face whatever comes next. The final words of prime linger in the air. Amen, soft and fading, like the last note of a song. You rise, your knees aching but familiar. The chapel door creaks open again, and you step into the corridor, the cold stone underfoot, the faint light of dawn spilling through a narrow window. You hear the distant clang of a hammer, perhaps the blacksmith already at work, and you feel the day shifting, pulling you from the sacred to the martial, from prayer to preparation. The courtyard is waiting, and with it, the weight of your sword, the clash of steel, the life you were born to lead. The chapel door swings shut behind you, Sir Roland de Caerwyn, the echo of Father Cedric's final. Amen fading into the cold air of Conwy Castle's corridor. Your knees still ache from the hours spent kneeling on stone, the memory of candlelight and incense clinging to your thoughts. But the world outside pulls you forward, the faint clang of a hammer grows louder now, a rhythmic pulse from the blacksmith's forge, mingling with the soft crunch of your boots on the rush-strewn floor. You step into the early light of dawn, the corridor opening to a narrow staircase that spirals down toward the courtyard. The air grows sharper, carrying the tang of mud and wet straw. You feel the weight of your wool tunic, its hem brushing your knees, damp from the morning's chill. You descend, each step echoing in the tight stone passage, your hand grazing the rough wall for balance. The castle feels alive now, stirring as the sun creeps over the battlements. You emerge into the courtyard, a wide, muddy expanse ringed by Conwy's towering walls. The 8 great towers loom above, their shadows long and dark against the pale stone. You pause, taking in the scene. The ground is churned from yesterday's drills, pocked with hoofprints and the deep ruts of cartwheels. A drizzle has begun, fine and cold, speckling your face like tiny needles. You pull your tunic closer, its coarse fibers scratching your neck, and scan the yard. A handful of knights are already here, their breath visible in the chilly air, their voices low and gruff. You spot Sir Gwynapries, a broad-shouldered man with a scar across his cheek, swinging a wooden sword in slow, deliberate arcs. His squire, young Owain, stands nearby, holding a battered shield. Your own squire, Thomas, appears at your side, his arms laden with your training gear, a padded gambeson, a wooden sword and a dented helm. He's panting slightly, his cheeks flushed from the cold. You nod to him, and he sets the gear down. The gambeson lands with a soft thud, its quilted linen stained from months of sweat and mud. You begin to dress, pulling the gambeson over your tunic, its weight settling on your shoulders, heavy but familiar. It's not as cumbersome as your mail hauberk, but it's still a burden. You tie the laces at the sides, your fingers stiff from the cold. The drizzle clings to your hair, trickling down your forehead. You wipe it away, feeling the grit of dust on your skin. Thomas hands you the wooden sword, its grip worn smooth by years of use. You test its weight, swinging it once, twice, the motion waking your muscles. You glance at Sir Gawain, who's now paired with another knight. Sir Darth demold their wooden blades, clacking in a steady rhythm. You step forward, the mud sucking at your boots, each step a small battle. Against the slick ground you call to Sir Gawain, your voice cutting through the drizzle. He turns, his eyes narrowing, then nods, gesturing for you to join him. You take your place across from him, the wooden sword raised. The courtyard feels smaller now, the walls closing in, the towers watching like silent judges. You begin. The first strike is slow, deliberate. Sir Gwyn's blade meeting yours with a sharp crack, the impact jars your arm. A dull ache spreading through your wrist. You step back, circling, the mud squelching beneath you. You strike again, harder this time, aiming for his shoulder. He parries, his movements fluid despite his age. You fall into a rhythm, strike, parry, step, strike again, the clack of wood echoing across the yard. Your breath comes faster now, visible in the cold air. The gambeson grows heavier, its padding soaking up the drizzle. You feel the sweat beading on your back, mingling with the rain. The world narrows to this moment, this dance of wood and mud and steel. You think of the campaign ahead, the Welsh rebels, defied ap Gruffud's men, hiding in the hills beyond. Conwy's walls, this training is no game, it's survival. You push harder, your sword arcing towards Sir Gwyn's side. He blocks, grunting, his scar twisting as he smiles. You step back panting, the drizzle thicker now, plastering your hair to your scalp. You glance at Thomas, who's watching, his eyes wide, clutching your helm as if it's a talisman. You nod to him, and he scurries forward, offering the helm. You take it, its iron cool against your palms. You pull it on, the world muffled, the visor slits narrowing your view. You feel the weight on your neck, the pressure against your temples. You adjust it, the leather lining damp but snug. You turn back to Sir Gawain, who's waiting, his own helm glinting in the weak light. You resume, the clack of wood louder now, the helm's weight slowing your movements. You strike. Parry. Step, the mud slippery, threatening to pull you down. You focus, your muscles burning, your breath loud in the confines of the helm. Sir Gawain presses forward, his strikes faster, testing you. You block, barely. The impact shuddering through your arm. You think of the hauberk you'll wear in battle. 30 pounds of mail, heavier than this gambeson. You think of the longsword, its edge sharp enough to cleave bone. Not this blunt wood. You think of the Welsh, their spears, their bows, their hatred for Edwards. Castles, you push back, your sword swinging in a wide arc. Sir Gawain stumbles, his boot catching in the mud. You pause, offering a hand. He takes it. His grip strong, his laugh rough but warm. You pull him up, the drizzle washing the mud from your hands. The courtyard is busier now, more knights arriving, their squires trailing behind. The clang of the forge grows louder, a counterpoint to the clack of wood. You step back, lowering your sword, your chest heaving. Sir Gawain claps your shoulder, his voice muffled by his helm. You nod, pulling off your own helm, the cold air a shock against your flushed face. You hand it to Thomas, who takes it with both hands. You glance at the sky, the clouds low and grey, the drizzle unrelenting. You think of the great hall of the straw pallet where you woke, of the chapel's cold stone, each moment of this day building toward the next. You feel the weight of your role, not just as a knight, but as a man bound to this castle, this king, this war. You turn to Thomas, gesturing for him to gather the gear. He nods, scrambling to collect the gambeson, the sword, the helm. You watch him, remembering your own days as a squire, the endless tasks, the constant need to prove yourself. You glance at Sir Gawain, who's now sparring with Sir Daff-eyed, their movements slower, the mud taking its toll. You feel a pang of camaraderie, a shared understanding of what it means to train, to prepare, to face the unknown. The courtyard is alive with sound now, the clack of wood, the squelch of mud, the low voices of men. You take a step toward the edge of the yard, where a low wall offers a moment's rest. You lean against it, the stone cold but solid. You wipe the rain from your face, feeling the stubble on your chin, the grit of mud on your skin. You think of the modern world where training meant gyms, machines, soft towels. Here, it's mud, wood, and the ever-present threat of war. You feel the ache in your arms, the burn in your legs. But it's a good ache, a reminder that you're ready, or as ready as you can be. Thomas returns, his arms full. You nod to him, ready to move on. But the courtyard holds you a moment longer. The drizzle, the towers, the men, all part of this world. You hear a shout, a knight slipping in the mud. Laughter following. You smile, the sound a rare warmth in this cold, grey morning. You push off the wall, your boots sinking into the mud. You glance at the keep, its great door beckoning, the promise of food, of warmth, of the next task. You feel the day shifting, the training done for now, but the work of a knight never truly ends. You take a step toward the keep, Thomas at your side, the courtyard fading behind you, the clang of the forge growing softer. You think of the great hall, of the meal that waits, of the men you'll sit among, the stories you'll hear, the plans you'll make. You feel the weight of your sword, even though it's wood, and you know that soon it'll be steel, sharp and heavy, ready for the march to come. The keep's door looms ahead, its oak dark with age. You pause, the drizzle still falling, the courtyard's noise a low hum behind you. You glance at Thomas, his face smudged with mud, his eyes bright with the effort of keeping up. You nod, and he pushes the door open, the creak of hinges welcoming you back to the castle's heart. The air inside is warmer, thick with the smell of bread and smoke. You step forward, the day pulling you onward, toward the great hall, toward the men who share your duty, toward the life of a knight in Conwy Castle. The heavy oak door of Conwy Castle's keep groans as your squire, Thomas, pushes it open. The sound is swallowed by the warm, smoky air that spills out. You step inside, Sir Roland de Caerwyn, your boots still caked with mud from the courtyard, the damp wool of your tunic clinging to your skin. The great hall unfolds before you, a vast space alive with the low hum of voices, the clatter of wooden trenchers, and the faint crackle of a fire in the massive hearth. The air is thick with the smell of fresh baked bread, boiled leeks, and a sharp tang of ale, a stark contrast to the cold drizzle and mud of the training yard you just left. Your muscles ache from the morning's drills, the weight of the gambeson still lingering in your shoulders, but the warmth of the hall wraps around you, a fleeting comfort in this harsh world. You pause, letting your eyes adjust to the dim light. The hall is crowded, knights and retainers seated at long trestle tables, their faces flushed from the heat, squires dart between them, carrying pitchers and baskets. You feel the floor beneath you, rushes crunching underfoot, their faint herbal scent doing little to mask the underlying smell of smoke and sweat. You move forward, your boots leaving faint smears of mud, Thomas trailing behind, his arms still burdened with your training gear. You scan the hall, searching for your place. The tables are ranged by rank, a silent map of power. The Lord's high table sits at the far end, raised on a dais, its cloth a faded red. You're a knight, not a lord, so your place is lower, but above the salt, a small privilege that sets you apart from the common men-at-arms. You spot Sir Gwyn ap Rhys already seated, tearing into a loaf of coarse bread, his scarred cheek twitching as he chews. You make your way toward him, the hall's noise swelling around you, laughter, crumbling, the clink of pewter mugs. You reach the table, a long slab of oak worn smooth by years of use, and settle onto the bench, its wood creaking under your weight. Thomas hovers nearby, unsure whether to sit or serve. You gesture for him to set the gear against the wall. He obeys, his movements quick but careful. You turn to the table, where a trencher sits before you, a shared wooden platter already heaped with steaming pottage, thick with barley and leeks. You reach for the bread, its crust hard, its center dense. You tear off a piece, the texture rough against your fingers. You dip it into the pottage, the warmth of the broth soaking through. You take a bite, the barley chewy, the leeks soft and faintly sweet. You chew slowly, deliberately, the act grounding you, pulling you into the rhythm of the meal. You glance at Sir Gwyn, who's sipping ale from a chipped mug, his eyes scanning the hall. You follow his gaze, noticing the other knights Sir Darfide Demold, his voice loud as he recounts a hunt, Sir Owen ap Highwell, quieter, picking at his food. The hall is a tapestry of men, each bound by oath, each shaped by this life of steel and stone. You take another bite, the pottage cooling now, its warmth fading. You think of the meals you once knew, plates of bright vegetables, tender meat, the ease of a modern kitchen. Here, the food is simple, filling but plain bread baked daily, pottage boiled in great iron pots, ale weak but plentiful. You reach for your own mug, the pewter cool against your palm. You sip, the ale watery, slightly sour, but it washes down the bread. You feel the hall's warmth, the fire's glow, the weight of the morning's prayers and training settling into your bones. You listen to the voices around you, snippets of talk drifting like smoke talk of the Welsh, of Darfide ap Gruffud's raids, of the king's demand for more men. You catch Sir Gwyn's eye. He leans closer, his voice low. He speaks of the campaign, of the march to Chester, of the Earl's summons Lord Richard de Burgh, the Earl of Ulster, who holds Conwy in the king's name. You nod, chewing slowly, the pottage's warmth fading further. You think of the Earl, a man you've seen only from a distance, his presence a shadow over the castle. You know he'll call for you soon to discuss the march, to assign men, to plan the journey through the Welsh hills. You feel a knot in your stomach, not fear, not quite, but the weight of what's coming. You take another sip of ale, the mug heavy in your hand. You glance at Thomas, who's now seated at the table's end, picking at a small piece of bread, his eyes darting between the knights. You remember your own days as a squire, always watching, always learning. You turn back to Sir Gwyn, who's still talking, his words a steady drone. He speaks of the Welsh terrain, the narrow passes, the risk of ambush. You nod again, your mind drifting to the great hall itself, its high ceiling blackened by years of smoke, its walls hung with faded tapestries, scenes of hunts and battles. You notice a servant, a girl no older than Thomas, carrying a basket of bread, her face pale, her hands chapped from the cold. You think of the hierarchy here, knights above squires, squires above servants, all below the earl. You take another bite of bread, its crust catching in your teeth. You chew, the act repetitive, soothing, the hall's noise a constant hum. You feel the bench beneath you. It's wood hard but familiar. You glance at the high table where the Earl's chair sits empty. He eats in his solo, or so you've heard, away from the noise, away from the men. You wonder what he's planning, what orders he'll give. You push the thought aside, focusing on the pottage, the bread, the ale. You eat slowly, each bite a small anchor in this fleeting moment of rest. The hall grows louder, and Knight at the far table laughs, his voice cutting through the hum. You look up, seeing Sir Darth gesturing wildly, his mug raised. You smile, the sound a rare lightness in this heavy world. You think of the chapel, the cold stone, the prayers that began this day. You think of the courtyard, the mud, the clack of wooden swords each moment leading to this one. You feel the weight of your tunic, the faint itch of fleas, the warmth of the fire. You take another sip of ale. Its taste familiar now. You listen as Sir Gwyn speaks again, his voice softer. He mentions a messenger arrived this morning, bearing news of Darth men. You lean closer, the pottage forgotten. The news is vague raids in the hills, villages burned, the king's patience thinning. You feel the knot tighten. The campaign is no longer a rumor. It's real. It's coming. You glance at Thomas, who's listening now, his bread untouched. You nod to him, a silent reassurance. He nods back, his eyes uncertain. You turn to Sir Gwyn, asking about the Earl's plans. He shrugs, his scarred cheek twitching. He says the summons will come soon, perhaps this afternoon. You nod, the ale mug cool in your hand. You sip again, the hall's warmth wrapping around you. You think of the modern world, where meals were quick, convenient, where news came from screens, not whispered rumors. Here, every bite, every word carries weight. You tear another piece of bread, dip it into the pottage, chew, swallow the act repetitive, grounding. The hall's noise ebbs and flows, a tide of voices. You feel the day moving, pulling you forward. The meal is nearly done, the trencher almost empty. You glance at the hearth, its flames lower now, the wood crackling softly. You think of the tasks ahead, the Earl's summons, the preparations for the march. You feel the weight of your role not just as a knight, but as a man bound to this castle, this king, this war. You push the trencher away, the wood scraping against the table. You stand, the bench creaking. Thomas rises too, his movements quick. You nod to Sir Gwyn, who's still eating, his eyes on the hall. You turn toward the door, the air cooler now, the smell of smoke and bread fading. You feel the mud on your boots, the ache in your muscles, the weight of the day. You step forward, Thomas at your side, the great hall's noise softening behind you. You think of the solo, of Lady Eleanor, your wife, who waits there, managing the estate in your absence. You think of the preparations, the armor, the men, the march. You feel the castle's walls, their stone unyielding, their shadows long. You push open the door, the air outside sharp with drizzle. You step into the light, the day pulling you onward, toward the solar, toward the woman who holds your world together, toward the next piece of this life in Conwy Castle. The door swings shut, the hall's warmth replaced by the cold bite of the well chair. You pause, the drizzle falling softly, speckling your face. You glance at Thomas, his tunic damp, his eyes bright with purpose. You nod, and he follows, the path to the solar winding through the castle's heart. You hear the faint creak of a cart, the low murmur of servants. You feel the day shift from the shared meal to the private world of family, from the noise of the hall to the quiet of the solar. When new duties wait, where the weight of the campaign grows heavier, where the life of a knight continues step by step, moment by moment. The great hall's heavy door thuds shut behind you, Sir Roland de Caerwyn, sealing away the warmth of bread and fire. The air outside bites at your face, cold and damp with the relentless Welsh drizzle. Your boots sink slightly into the muddy path, the same mud that clung to you in the courtyard hours ago. You feel the weight of your tunic, its wool heavy with moisture, clinging to your skin. Thomas, your squire, follows close behind, his tunic equally damp, his arms still clutching the training gear, his breath visible in the chill. You glance at him, his face smudged with mud and effort, his eyes bright despite the cold. You nod, a silent command to keep up, and turn toward the keep's inner passages. The path to the solar winds through narrow corridors, their stone walls slick with condensation. You hear the faint creak of a cart somewhere nearby, perhaps servants hauling firewood. the sound muffled by the castle's thick walls. You walk on, your boots echoing softly, the drizzle pattering against your shoulders. You think of the great hall, the pottage and ale, the low hum of knights' voices. It feels distant now, a moment of rest already fading. Your muscles still ache from the morning's drills, the clack of wooden swords still ringing in your ears. You think of the chapel, the cold stone under your knees, the drone of Father Cedric's prayers. Each moment of this day weaves into the next, a tapestry of duty and routine. You reach a narrow staircase, its steps worn smooth by centuries of feet. You climb, the air growing warmer as you ascend, the scent of damp stone giving way to the faint musk of wool and beeswax. The solar is near, a private chamber high in the keep, where Lady Eleanor, your wife, manages the estate in your absence. You pause at the top of the stairs, a heavy curtain blocking the entrance. Its coarse fabric embroidered with faded threads. You push it aside, the fibers rough against your palm, and step into the solar. The air is softer here, warmed by a small brazier glowing in the corner, its coals casting a faint orange light across the room. The solar is small, intimate, a world apart from the great hall's chaos. Tapestries line the walls, their scenes of hunts and rivers softened by time. You see Lady Eleanor seated at a wooden table, her quill scratching across parchment, her brow furrowed in concentration. She looks up, her eyes meeting yours, a faint smile softening her face. You feel a warmth not from the brazier but from her presence, a reminder of the life you share beyond the sword and shield. You step forward, the rushes on the floor crunching softly, their herbal scent mingling with the brazier's smoke. Thomas hesitates at the curtain, unsure. You gesture for him to set the gear against the wall. He obeys, the wooden sword and helm clattering softly. You turn to Eleanor, her hair tucked beneath a linen coif, her gown a deep blue, its hem frayed but elegant. She sets the quill down, the ink glistening in the dim light. You sit across from her, the chair creaking under your weight. You feel the day's fatigue, the ache in your arms, the itch of fleas beneath your tunic. But here, in this moment, it's quieter. You notice the parchment, lists of grain stores, wool tallies, tenant disputes Eleanor's work, keeping the estate alive while you prepare for war. You think of the modern world, where such tasks might be done with a click, not hours of quill and ink. Here, every line is labor, every decision a weight. You speak softly, asking about the estate. Her voice is calm, steady. She speaks of a late harvest, a sick tenant, a dispute over grazing rights. You listen, nodding, the words a steady rhythm like the prayers of the chapel. You feel the brazier's warmth, faint but steady. You notice a small loaf of bread on the table, finer than the coarse loaf of the hall. You tear off a piece, its crust softer, its center light. You chew, the taste clean, almost sweet. Eleanor watches, her eyes sharp but kind. She asks about the morning, the training, the rumors of the Welsh. You tell her of Sir Gwyn's words, the Earl's summons, the march to Chester. Her face tightens, just for a moment. You know she feels the weight too, the campaign looming like the clouds outside. You reach for her hand, her fingers cool but strong. You think of the great hall, the men, the noise. It's another world. Here, it's just you and her, the brazier's glow, the scratch of her quill. You glance at Thomas, who's now polishing your helm, his cloth moving in slow, repetitive strokes. You think of his future, a squire dreaming of knighthood. You think of your own past, the years of training, the weight of the oath. You turn back to Eleanor, her quill moving again. You stand, moving to the gear. You check the wooden sword, its grip worn but solid. You think of the real sword, the one Thomas will polish tonight, its edge sharp, its weight heavier. You run your fingers along the helm, feeling the dents, the scratches. You think of the hauberk, 30 pounds of mail, waiting in the armory. You check the gambeson, its stitches fraying but holding. You move slowly, deliberately, each action a ritual. You feel Eleanor's eyes on you. You glance at her. She's still writing, but her gaze is soft. You know she's thinking of the march, of the days you'll be gone, of the estate she'll manage alone. You think of the modern world, where distance was a phone call, not weeks of marching through mud and rain. Here, absence is a void, filled only by letters, if you're lucky. You sit again, the chair creaking. You ask about her day. Her words a quiet stream. She speaks of the steward, the mill, the sheep. You listen, the brazier's glow fading, the coals settling. You feel the solar's quiet, its warmth, its difference from the hall, the chapel, the courtyard. You think of the campaign, the earl's summons, the men you'll lead. You feel the weight of it all, not just the gear, but the responsibility. You tear another piece of bread, chew, swallow the act repetitive, grounding. You notice a small window, its shutters open, letting in the grey light of the drizzle. You hear the faint patter of rain, the distant low of cattle. You think of the castle's walls, their stone unyielding, their towers watching. You feel the day moving, pulling you forward. You glance at Thomas, his polishing done, his hands resting. You nod, signaling him to prepare the gear for the armory. He stands, gathering the items. You turn to Eleanor, her quill still now, her eyes on you. You speak of the march, the men, the plan. Her voice is steady, offering advice, a reminder of her strength. You feel a pride, a bond. You stand, the chair creaking again. You move to the curtain, the air cooler now. You pause, glancing back at Eleanor, her quill moving once more. You think of the tasks ahead, the armory, the men, the earl. You feel the drizzle outside, waiting. You step through the curtain, Thomas behind you, the solar's warmth fading, the corridor's cold embracing you. You hear the rain, louder now, the castle alive with small sounds. You think of the evening prayers, vespers, compline tasks that never end. You feel the weight of your role, not just as a knight, but as a husband, a leader, a man bound to this castle, this king, this life. You move forward, the corridor narrowing, the stone cold underfoot. You think of the armory, the steel, the preparations. You feel the day shift, from the quiet of the solar to the work that waits, the life that continues. Step by step, moment by moment. The corridor opens to a wider passage, the air sharp with the smell of oil and metal. You hear the faint clink of armor, the low voices of men. You glance at Thomas, his steps quick to match yours. You nod, and he adjusts the gear in his arms. You move toward the armory, the castle's heart of steel, where the tools of war wait, where the next piece of your day begins, where the life of a knight in Conwy Castle carries on. The solar heavy curtain brushes against the damp stone wall. As Sir Roland de Caerwyn steps into the corridor, leaving behind the brazier, faint orange glow and the steady scratch of Lady Eleanor's quill on parchment. The air shifts sharply cold with the chill of Conwy Castle's ancient stones, carrying a faint metallic scent of oil and iron, a stark contrast to the solar. Warmth, its musk of wool and ink blending with the faint sweetness of beeswax. Thomas, the young squire, follows closely, his arms burdened with training gear, the wooden sword clinking softly against the dented helm with each careful step. The corridor stretches narrow, its whitewashed walls slick with moisture, reflecting the dim flicker of a torch set in a rusty sconce high above. The distant clatter of armor echoes faintly, blending with the low murmur of men preparing for the evening's duties. The drizzle's dampness lingers in Sir Roland's tunic, its coarse wool heavy, clinging to skin still warm from the solar's fire. The path winds through the castle's heart, leading to the armory where tools of war await. The scent of oil grows stronger, mingling with the sharp tang of rust, a constant reminder of the campaign stirring beyond these walls. Daff-eyed Grufford-esque rebels hiding in the shadowed Welsh hills, waiting to challenge King Edward's iron grip. Sir Roland's boots echo on the stone floor, each step measured, deliberate, a rhythm that matches the castle's pulse. The solar's quiet fades into memory, replaced by the ever-present hum of duty. The armory door looms ahead, its oak scarred, darkened by years of use. Its hinges groan as it swings open, revealing a dim chamber lit by a single lantern hanging from a blackened beam, its light casting long, wavering shadows across racks of swords, shields, and chainmail. The air is thick, heavy with the smell of polished steel, worn leather, and the faint mustiness of wood. Sir Roland pauses, letting the dimness settle, the armory a sanctuary of purpose, each blade, each link of mail a testament to battles fought, to loyalty sworn, to survival earned. A wooden rack holds the hauberk, its iron links gleaming faintly in the lantern's glow. Fingers trace the metal, cool and smooth to the touch, each link a tiny circle woven into a shirt weighing 30 pounds, its weight a familiar burden. Sir Roland lifts it, arms straining slightly, the ache from the morning's drills in the muddy courtyard reawakening in shoulders, the memory of wooden swords clacking against shields still vivid. Thomas sets the training gear on a worn bench, its oak surface thudding softly, and takes the hauberk, his young arms trembling under its mass. He begins to inspect it, fingers probing each link for rust for any sign of weakness. That could fail in battle, his focus sharp, a squire learning the craft of war, his breath visible in the cold, damp air. Sir Roland turns to a longsword, its scabbard resting on a nearby rack. The blade hisses as it's drawn, its edge catching the lantern's light, glinting with a promise of precision. The hilt fits perfectly in hand, its leather grip worn smooth by years of use. A slow swing tests its balance, the air humming softly with the motion. The wooden sword of the courtyard feels distant now, a blunt tool of practice. This steel is forged for battle, for cutting through leather, bone, life itself. The blade slides back into its scabbard, the sound sharp, cutting through the armory's quiet. Thomas continues polishing the hauberk, his cloth moving in slow, repetitive strokes, the faint scrape of fabric against metal blending with the lantern's soft creak as it sways. Sir Roland moves to a shield, its oak surface reinforced with iron bands, its face scarred from countless practice blows in the courtyard. Its weight settles into arms, a reminder of the mud that sucked at boots, the clack of wood against wood. The shield is set down, the wood thudding against the bench. Thoughts turn to the march to Chester, the narrow passes of the Welsh hills where rebels wait. The Earl's summons whispered in the great hall over pottage and ale. Looms closer, a shadow cast over the evening. Sir Gwyn's words echo, the messenger's news of burned villages, of Daffide's men growing bolder. A small table holds a map, its parchment creased, stained with ink and time. Fingers trace the route to Chester, the rivers winding through valleys, the hills hiding danger. The armory's purpose presses close, its steel a promise of survival, its weight a burden of responsibility. The faint toll of a bell breaks the silence, vespers, the evening prayer, calling Sir Roland from the armory's steel to the chapel's stone. Thomas looks up, his polishing paused. A nod signals him to finish later. The armory door creaks shut, the corridor's cold returns, its walls narrowing. The bell's toll grows louder, guiding steps back to the chapel, its oak door familiar, its carved crosses worn smooth by years of touch. The door swings open, creaking, the air inside heavy with the scent of incense, cold with the bite of stone. Candlelight flickers across whitewashed walls, casting soft shadows of saints painted in faded hues, their eyes seeming to watch. Sir Roland kneels, the stone floor biting at knees, the familiar echo of matins prime, the hours spent in prayer. The cross is made, fingers brushing the tunic's damp wool. Father Cedric's voice rises, steady and deep, chanting Latin phrases, Deus in adjutorium meum intend. The words roll like a tide, washing over the gathered knights. Sir Gwyn kneels nearby, his scarred cheek shadowed in the candlelight, Sir Dafide beside him, their heads bowed, their breath visible in the chill. The chapel is a world apart, its quiet a balm, its prayers a rhythm that soothes. The Latin blends into a soft drone, Gloria Patri et Filio, a chant that lulls. Thoughts drift to the armory, the hauberk's weight pressing on shoulders, the sword's edge glinting. To the solar, Eleanor's quill scratching lists of grain, wool, tenant disputes. To the great hall, the pottage's warmth, the ale's sour bite. To the courtyard, the mud sucking at boots, the clack of wooden swords. Each moment weaves into this one, the stone's cold seeps through, the candles drip, their wax pooling in small, silent drops on the floor. Vespers flows into Compline, the final prayer of the day. Father Cedric's voice softens in Manus Tua's Domini, a surrender to the night, to faith, to the endless cycle of duty. The chapel's stillness holds Sir Roland, the weight of the day settling like dust. The march to Chester, the men to lead, the dangers lurking in the hills, all linger in thought. Knees ache, but the rhythm of prayer soothes. Compline ends, the knights rise, their movements slow, deliberate, boots scuffing softly on the stone. The chapel empties. Sir Roland steps into the corridor, the bell now silent, the air sharp with the night's chill. Steps lead back to the armory, Thomas waiting, the hauberk polished. its links gleaming under the lantern's glow, the sword resting in its scabbard, its edge ready. A parchment lies on the table, a letter for Eleanor, its wax seal cool under fingers. A quill scratches a few final words, thoughts of home, of duty, of the march ahead. The wax drips, sealing the letter with a soft thud. Thomas takes it, his steps quick as he's tasked with delivery to the solar. The armory's weight lingers, its steel a constant, a reminder of the campaign, of the oath sworn to king and castle. Sir Roland steps outside, the drizzle gone, the air clear, cold. Stars faintly visible through thinning clouds. The castle's 8 towers loom, their stone eternal, unyielding. The sea's distant crash echoes a low, rhythmic pulse. Conwy Castle stands as a bulwark, its purpose clear, to hold the land, to serve the king, to break the rebels. Thoughts turn to the great hall, the straw pallet waiting, its prickly surface a promise of rest. Steps move toward it, the corridors stone cold underfoot, the air carrying the faint scent of smoke from the hall ahead. The day winds down, the weight of the hauberk, the sword, the oath, all carried forward. The life of a knight flows on, not stopping, not ending, but shifting from steel to stone, from prayer to preparation, from day to night. The great hall's door looms ahead, its oak dark, worn smooth by years of hands. Thomas pushes it open, the hearth's faint glow spilling out, the air warm with the scent of wood smoke and fading bread. The straw pallet waits in the corner, its coarse blanket folded. Sir Roland steps forward, the night deep, the castle quiet. The distant crash of waves blending with the crackle of the fire. The snores of men beginning, a soft chorus in the hall. The life of a night carries on toward rest, toward the dawn, toward the endless rhythm of duty. The palay's straw rustles as Sir Roland settles, the blanket's wool scratches, its patches rough against skin. The fire's glow softens, the hall's shadows stretch long. The wind howls faintly, carrying the sea's salt. The day's moments replay, the straw pallet of morning, the garderobe's cold seat. The chapel's stone, the courtyard's mud, the great hall's pottage, the solar's brazier. The armory's steel, each a thread in the tapestry of this life. The march to Chester looms, the earl's summons waits, the men to lead, the rebels to face. The oath to uphold, the fire crackles, the waves crash. The night holds Conwy Castle, its towers standing sentinel, its walls unyielding. The life of a night drifts not to an end, but to a pause, a breath before the dawn. Before the duty, before the next step in this eternal cycle. The great hall's heavy oak door creaks as Thomas pushes it open, the hearth's warm glow spilling out into the cold corridor, washing over Sir Roland de Caerwyn as he steps inside. The air thick with the scent of wood smoke and the faint, lingering aroma of bread from the midday meal, a stark contrast to the armory's sharp tang of oil and steel left behind moments ago. The hall stretches wide, its stone floor scattered with rushes that crunch softly under boots still flecked with mud from the courtyard's morning drills. The trestle tables, their oak surfaces worn smooth by years of use, stand pushed against the walls, cleared of trenchers and mugs. The hall quieter now, the bustle of knights and squires faded, only a few men remain. Huddled near the fire, their voices a low murmur, their faces softened by the flickering light. Sir Roland's tunic, damp with the day's drizzle, clings to skin, its coarse wool heavy. The ache of muscles from swinging wooden swords lingers in shoulders, the faint itch of fleas. A constant companion persists beneath the fabric. Thomas moves to a corner, settling onto a bench, his young face etched with exhaustion, his eyes half closed as he curls against the wall. The hearth draws Sir Roland closer, its flames low, the wood crackling softly, sending small sparks drifting upward. A bench creaks under the weight of a night, legs stretch out, knees stiff from hours spent kneeling on the chapel's cold stone. The fire's warmth washes over a weathered face, easing the day's fatigue. The hall's shadows stretch long, the blackened beams above catching the fire's faint glow. Thoughts drift to the day's rhythm, the straw pallet where Sir Roland woke at dawn, its prickly surface a far cry from softer beds, the garderobe's cold seat, its sour smell wafting up. From the chute to the sea, the chapel's endless prayers, their Latin chants a soothing drone, the courtyard's mud sucking at boots, the clack of wooden swords echoing the grate, hall's pottage thick with barley and leeks. The solar's quiet Eleanor's quill scratching lists of grain and wool the armory's steel. The hauberk's 30 pounds of iron links gleaming. Each moment weaves into this one, the fire's crackle a steady pulse. The hall a cocoon of stone and wood. Conwy Castle stands firm, its 8 towers looming against the night. Their stone a testament to King Edward's will, built to hold the Welsh lands, to break the rebels. The sea's distant crash echoes through the walls, a low, rhythmic pulse. A reminder of the hills beyond where dark-eyed ap Gruffud's men hide, plotting, waiting. The march to Chester looms. The Earl's summons, whispered over ale in the great hall, casts a shadow over the night. Thoughts turn to the hauberk, its weight pressing on shoulders, to the longsword, its edge sharp enough to cleave bone, to the letter sealed with wax, now in Eleanor's hands. Her steady eyes reading words of duty, of home. To Thomas, dreaming of knighthood, his young hands polishing steel. To Sir Gwyn, his scarred cheek twitching as he spoke of the messenger's news. To the men to be led, their lives bound to an oath sworn before king and God. The fire's warmth soothes, but the weight of duty remains. The castle's walls, unyielding, hold this life together, a life of stone, steel, faith. The wind howls softly outside, carrying the sea's salt, its moan blending with the fire's crackle. Thoughts drift to another world, a modern one, distant, strange, where warmth comes with the flick of a switch, where beds are deep, mattresses soft, blankets smooth, where water runs clean, hot, endless, pouring from gleaming taps. Where meals are bright, varied, quick, plates piled with vibrant greens, tender meats. Fruits unknown in this cold, grey Wales. Where war is news, flickering on screens, distant, not steel gripped in hand, not mud underfoot, not the ache of a hauberk's weight. The garderobes shoot, dropping waste to the sea, fades against tiled bathrooms, their sinks shining, their air fresh. The pottage's plainness, its barley chewy, its leeks soft, contrasts with feasts of endless choice. The chapel's cold stone, its 8 daily prayers, matins, prime, lauds, terce, sext, nun, vespers. Compline stands apart from a world where faith is a choice, not a rhythm woven into every hour. The courtyard's mud, its endless drills, the clack of wood, the slip of boots, differs from gyms. Their machines humming, their floors clean, their towels soft. Yet this life, harsh, cold, unyielding, holds a clarity, a purpose. Sir Roland knows his place, a knight of Conwy, bound to king, to castle, to men. The march is clear, the duty unwavering, fight, protect, endure. The modern world with its choices, its ease, its chaos, lacks this anchor, this rhythm. The fire's glow fades, the wood settling into ash. The hall grows quieter, the nights by the fire murmur softer. One laughs, a low rumble, a rare warmth in this cold world. Sir Roland rises, the bench creaking under shifting weight. Steps move to the straw pallet, its surface familiar, prickly, rustling as a body settles. The blanket, coarse, patched, scratches against skin. The straw shifts, pricking through the tunic. The hall's quiet deepens. The snores of men begin, a chorus of exhaustion blending with the fire's faint crackle. The wind howls outside, its moan carrying the sea's salt. The waves crash, their rhythm endless, lulling. Thoughts linger on Eleanor, her strength, her quill, her hands managing the estate. On Thomas, his eager eyes, his hands learning the weight of steel. On Sir Gwyn, his steady voice, his scarred cheek. On the men, their trust, their lives bound to the same oath. On the castle, its towers, its walls, standing sentinel. On the march to Chester, the hills, the revels. The life of a knight flows on, not ending, not stopping, but drifting. The pollet's straw pricks, the blanket's wool scratches. The fire's glow softens, the hall's shadows stretch longer. The wind moans, the waves crash. The night holds Conwy in quiet. The castle's stone eternal, its purpose clear, to hold, to fight, to endure. Thoughts return to the modern world, its soft beds, its bright lights, its endless choices, its ease, its chaos. The straw pallet, the fleas, the cold, the stone, the steel, the mud. The prayers all hold a truth, a rhythm, a life defined. So Roland's breath slows. The day slips away, the hall a cocoon of stone and wood. The fire's crackle fades, the snores blend. The waves crash, soft, steady. The wind carries the sea's salt. The night wraps Conwy in quiet. The life of a night drifts not to an end, but to a pause, a breath, a moment before the dawn. Before the bell, before the prayers, before the sword, before the march. The straw rustles, the blanket shifts, the fire's glow fades. The hall holds its men, its knights, its purpose. The waves crash, the wind moans, the castle stands. The life of a night flows, moment by moment, into the dawn, into the duty, into the eternal cycle of this world. The night deepens, the fire settles, the waves roll. The life of a night in Conwy Castle carries on, a rhythm, a pulse, a truth, endless, unyielding, eternal. High-chapped